Greetings, family. Welcome again to another episode of the First Class Church podcast. I'm Dr. Timothy Farmer, your techno-evangelist, and we are grateful that you are here for another episode. If you have not subscribed to the First Class Church podcast, during this episode, we want you to subscribe so that you can stay connected not only to this episode, but to many episodes to come. I am grateful to be in the studio with none other than the one and only, the preaching sister, Dr. Libby BaaQar. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
So you don't know this, but I first encountered Dr. Libby, as many call her. I was in Fort Valley, Georgia, and I was teaching at the 6th District AME conference. And I walked into the auditorium and I was preparing, just getting ahead of the game to be there for a presentation that I was doing. And the crowd was just going crazy. And I'm like, what is happening in this auditorium? And I walked in and Dr. Libby was just going for it. She was just preaching her face off. And I said, I've got to connect with Dr. Libby. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I recall you being there for the conference as well. Wow.
Yes. Small world.
It is.
Small world. So
it is.
Great things that you're doing in ministry.
Thank you.
So proud of the work that you're doing to support women in ministry and even up and coming pastors and preachers who are certainly doing great things. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Yeah.
So a little bit about Dr. Libby, as many call her. She is a native, one of the few natives of Atlanta. She's a Georgia peach.
Georgia peach, A.T. Elliott.
A.T. Elliott.
Yes.
She is an ordained minister in the AME Church and serves as the executive pastor of St. Paul AME Church. My good brother, Dr. Drain, is the pastor. And she works with many women ministries. She does Bible studies, workshops. She is an advocate for empowerment and equality for all people, particularly women of color. She is a graduate of the University of West Georgia and received both her master and doctorate degrees from the McAfee School of Theology at Mercer University.
Right, yeah.
Yes, indeed. And she has affiliations with the Georgia Association of Paralegals, the NAACP, and serves as the chaplain for the Atlanta Suburban Alumni Chapter of the one and only Delta Sigma Theta.
That's right.
Sorority Incorporated. Shout out to the Deltas.
Ooh.
Indeed. Hey, love the Deltas.
Got to give it to my sorors.
Yes, that's indeed. Now, one thing I was that was intriguing, that you are a professional baker.
Yes, I am.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
People are always surprised about that. But yeah.
Now, what's your specialty?
I get asked that all the time. I don't really have a specialty, but I'll tell you what is popular.
Okay.
And that is red velvet cake and strawberry cake. Those are the two things that people love to order.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yes, a professional baker and the owner of Sugar Plum Sweets. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I need to put in my order after the podcast. And annually, she hosts a girlfriends brunch of over 200 women on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
To empower and encourage women to reach their highest potentials. And she is also a podcaster.
Yes.
And is the co-host of the Grown Folks Table podcast. So definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Where can that podcast be viewed?
Really on all platforms. We've been doing, we're kind of on the hiatus right now. We're doing some regrouping, but we have a Facebook page so they can go and view all of some of our episodes there. SoundCloud, all of those places as well. So they certainly can find them on a different platform. So real quick, let me do a shameless plug.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Our Sugar Plum event space, which is in Fairburn, Georgia, where we do all events, everything from birthday parties to weddings. So shout out.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
My sisters and I own that. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, keep it in the family.
That's right. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Sugar Plum Events.
Sugar Plum Events and Sugar Plum Sweets.
Sugar Plum Sweets. All right. If you can get your cake and have your event all in the same space.
Same place. Yeah. All in one.
Can't get any better than that. So, You've done a lot in ministry, and certainly proud of the work that you're doing. So tell us about your ministry journey. We know that you're an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and so you're in ministry, doing great things. So tell us about your ministry experience in the AME Church and just in general
Yeah.
that has brought you to where you are now.
Well, I will say real quickly, I think this is important to say, is that I didn't grow up Christian. So I grew up Muslim.
Really?
And so the journey for me is very interesting and probably different and slightly unorthodox in a lot of ways. But I grew up Muslim and then came into the Christian religion very, very later in life, in college. And on down, I would go on to where I decided when I left college, I was looking for a church, because that's when I came in. I was a babe in Christ. So I wanted to find a church that felt like the choir I was in at school. And I started out CME, and then I left the CME church and went over to my aunt's church, which is my aunt by marriage. And I went to an AME church, which is St. Paul Church, where I am now. And that's where I answered my call in 2003. And from that point, I got, ordained. We do 2 ordinations. So I got into my deacons and then, of course, my itinerant elders ordination. And interesting, when I got my first ordination, my pastor at the time, he sent me out to whole churches.
Wow.
So my ministry journey was basically full of basically being a substitute pastor. So I would go whole churches for pastor who didn't have help, or they needed to go on vacation, or they had other things like they were in the reserves, or whatever it was that they needed to do. I would come and hold their church. Or if they was tired.
Sure.
They need someone to preach. So I did that in my journey, starting out. And that was kind of what I did for a very long time. And then even when I think I held the church the longest, probably a couple of months.
Yeah.
So yeah. So my journey has been like that busy. And then I kind of, we moved and I went to another church with that same pastor. And then that pastor ended up being elevated to presiding elder, appointed to presiding elder. And then it kind of brought me full circle after I kind of went to a few churches, and I ended up coming back to my home church, St. Paul AME Church, where I serve as executive pastor there, and where we're doing great work. So it's a full circle moment for me.
Full circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That has
absolutely.
to be very fulfilling.
It's very fulfilling. It really
back
is.
from where you started
Yeah.
to serve. I mean, I'm sure that adds even more of a sense of engagement
Absolutely.
to be there.
Yeah, and I think being familiar sometimes can be up and down, because they've been with you before you were Reverend Doctor. So that kind of thing sometimes can be, for some people, problematic, but it hasn't been for me. It's been a great transition into that, and they have pretty much just loved on me and embraced me, and so have I with them. And so we've been able to do a lot of great work, push vision, and kind of get people moving forward. And so it's been great. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. That's awesome.
It's been wonderful. Yeah.
So your transition, I want to kind of lean in as far as growing up Muslim.
Yes.
And your defining moment of transition.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you?
Well, it was interesting because I was unchurched in sense of, Christianity, but I wasn't not familiar with God.
Okay.
So I like to say that because people think if you're, people, a lot of time in a Christian context, we think if you are Muslim, you don't know God or the God that they, ascribe to. But I knew God, I knew prayer, I knew spiritual discipline, probably a lot better than Christians, to be quite honest. Yeah. And so I basically was in college, and my best friend in college, who's also my line sister, she grew up holiness, and so she was holiness. And what led me to Christ was the way that she lived.
Wow. And
she was very just very embracing, loving. She wasn't judgmental about, me being Muslim. She was just very free with me. She would study her Bible. She would go to Bible studies on Wednesdays at school and college. She joined the choir, the gospel choir. And I just wanted to do what she was doing. Wow. And so when she would talk about, tonight in Bible study, we talked about Abraham. I was like, oh, I know about Abraham because my Holy Quran talked about Abraham and Sarah and all of that. And so I started going to the Bible studies, and I was very engaged in the study because my father, who was the first person who basically converted to Islam. and our family, of course, went alongside of him. He always encouraged us to study and to learn, and he gave not only a Holy Quran, but he also gave a Jewish Torah, and he also gave a Christian Bible. So we're not ignorant to any religion. We were very open, and so she did that for me. And once I did that with her, I saw Christ in her. Wow. And I saw something that I felt I belonged to. So I wasn't ascribing to what was my father's religion. I had now found what I called home. And that's how I got there.
Identity.
My own identity, where I feel like I felt like I could actually identify with this Christ who understood I felt the marginalized, because I grew up very poor. And so for a Christ that still spoke to those persons who were less than, that was a Christ that I wanted to get to know.
And I'm sure that has impacted your hermeneutical approach to preaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see beyond. And I think that's the important thing. And also I use that to let people see also that God can use whoever God wants to use and can take people from this murky mire place. You know what I mean? And then bring us to this space where God can ask us to be the mouthpiece for God. That's an amazing thing.
It is an amazing thing.
Yeah, the journey is always important.
Yeah, what a testimony.
Yeah,
that's a blessing. And I think,
and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, and I know that others who even might be watching this podcast may be in a place where they're working or they're wanting to develop that and have that sense of identity with not just the Christ from someone else, but the Christ that they can identify with.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing that I share, is that you need to find the Christ that you can identify. We don't have a one-sided Christ. Our Christ is not boxed in. And so your mama or grandmother Christ may not be yours, but you may be identified with the Christ that went to Samaria. That may be your Christ, and not necessarily the cross Christ. It may be the Samaritan Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I know that, with your testimony and the work that you do in ministry, you certainly have an affinity towards empowering women in ministry.
Yeah.
And helping to support their journey. And I know that comes with some challenges.
Yeah.
And helping to allow your story to be the example as others are writing theirs.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you in terms of taking and encapsulating your journey and helping others?
Well, I think the first thing that I do in that, when I'm empowering my mentees or any woman in ministry that may, or any woman in general that may come to me and want to talk about that, the first thing I want to talk to them about is authenticity. Because for me, know who you are. Because when we come into this thing called ministry, and when we come in as a woman, we really have to be very sure about our call and sure about who we are, and not try to mimic other people, or even our mentors, or our spiritual mothers or fathers, or whomever you call them. We have to know who we are. So the first thing I talk to them about is, who are you? And I talk about what brought you here. Same question we were talking about, because I think the journey is important.
It is.
And I think that God uses the journey. He wants to have these variables and various types of personalities and styles and persons and callings in ministry. I don't think God wants this, I think God wants a rainbow of people. And so bring all of it with you. Yes, we're saved, we're changed, and God has, turned our lives around, and we're no longer in the old person, but we are still who we are in our makeup innately, and that should come to the journey, and that should come to ministry, because there are people that you're going to preach to or speak to or talk to who need to know that they too can either come into ministry, or they can serve, or they can be accepted by Christ.
And that there's value in their journey. Yes, it makes a difference.
It does.
That your journey is not just yours.
It's not just yours.
But it's for somebody else.
It's for somebody else.
Wow. So, and that's great that you're able to use your experiences to help when women or anyone who are coming into ministry or coming into any area of their life that might be their next chapter, might be where they're growing, even in business, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are persons that I have who are my mentees who are not in ministry, that who are professionals, who are aspiring to be paralegals, who may be aspiring to be entrepreneurs, who are just looking to transition in their professional life, in their career life. So yeah, I think it's the same piece.
And so I know how you've supported pastors who need a break.
Yeah.
And who needed some time, some downtime, and you supported their ministries as you said, a substitute pastor.
Right.
So with that being said, there is in the span of ministry, there are times where we become frustrated. There are times we become tired. So in terms of how you have sustained yourself and in your longevity, what are some things that you do to help ensure that you don't become burned out or disillusioned in ministry, to help you stay focused on the things that you're doing and as you help others too?
Because we know burnout is real, right?
It's real.
It's real.
Yeah.
I think boundaries. The biggest thing is boundaries. Boundaries also help you have self-care.
So boundaries such as sometimes saying no? Saying
no, and also boundaries of pulling away. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes we want to be everything for everybody and always, making sure that we're there for them and doing the things. And it may not be that we're saying yes all the time. It may just be that we always think we have to be on, And so I think the boundaries help us say, you know what, it's time to pull away. It's just time for me to just go and draw near somewhere, whether it's near water, whether I need to go and just be in prayer or go on vacation or just go and be with, my girls and what I in my family, they know that I say I'm taking off the Reverend Doctor hat and I'm putting on the Lib hat, which means I want to be free. I want to do what I want to do. I'm not here to pray for you. I'm not here to, to deal with your problems. I'm not here to encourage you. I'm not even to give you a good word. I am simply here to be Lib. That's a boundary.
That's a boundary.
And it has to be respected. And you have to allow people to respect it and have those people around you. So I think just doing that is a form of self-care. And I do think alone time is good. I know we do time with other people and family and spouses and children, but I think sometimes we do need to just be alone, whatever that looks like, whether it's a spa or whether it's a drive, or whether it's just a moment where you go and you do a staycation in the city. We need to have alone time so that we can not only hear from God, but we can just rest. We can sleep.
There's power in sleep.
Oh, it is. You get renewed. You live longer.
You live longer
when you rest.
That's it. You look healthier.
You look healthier. You feel better. You're happier. Yeah.
It makes a difference.
It does.
So, and that also helps to impact rest.
Yeah.
Helps with continuing to stay sharp and having a sense of innovation.
Yeah.
Ministry is constantly and continually evolving.
Oh man. Yeah.
And so if we don't take that time in order to help us to become recharged, renewed.
That's it, yeah.
Revitalized.
Yeah.
Then as ministry continues to unfold, then we're not going to be able to keep up.
We won't.
God is always changing and ministry is always evolving.
Yeah.
So it's important to stay on the pulse of your self-care.
I agree. And I did all of April. I had preaching, but I also decided April was my month to feel me. So I went to conferences and I did things and I said no about commitments to other things. And I kept, with my covenant and promise with myself that I'm going to do things that fill me. And then I can learn from, and then I can just go and worship. Amen. And so April was that month for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure, and one of the things I saw the other day, and it was a quote, and the person who said it escapes me if I remember who it was, but they said something about the power of ministry and excellence is connected to exposure.
Yeah.
And so as you go to conferences and as you become filled and become connected, that exposure, even as we talk about first class church.
Learning. Absolutely.
And seeing things outside of your normal environment.
Absolutely. And it helps you be more innovative.
It does.
Because you see what people are doing and you're fresh enough to be able to receive it because you're not exhausted and tired. Yeah.
And I think that one of the challenges or tragedies in ministry is that exposure is inhibited by not wanting to see what others are doing and think that what we're doing is where the buck stops.
I agree. And I think that can also have to do with ego.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think sometimes, as pastors, we can have these huge egos to not want to do what somebody else is doing. But the old saying says it's okay to copy as long as you copy the right cat,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
And so people are doing great things. Other churches are doing great. It's okay to go to a conference outside of even your race bracket and to see what they're doing and to see the innovating, the technology and the things that they're getting into, to see how they're leading, to see what small groups does. You may not be able to small group where you are, but you may be able to pick some of that stuff that they're doing in small groups, to see how they're using interns from colleges to come in to do work and do social media. All those things, the lighting, what they're doing with lighting, all of that is important. What they're doing with sound, how they're building out their stage.
You hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah, how engaging are they with the community and with their people? How they're dressing, how the people are responding to that. How are they opening up worship? Well, how is the response of that? So I think going to these places is very healthy for us, and we can take some of that back, and we may not be able to do it in the same scale, but we can do it at a scale that is comfortable to our demographics and comfortable to our community.
Yeah. Because I think that if we take more opportunities to learn from others, to glean from other ministries, and allow people to glean from us.
Absolutely. Or bring them over.
That's it.
To workshop you. It's okay for them to come over to workshop your folks. Networking is healthy and is good. It works in business. It also should work in church.
And I think that from a business standpoint, that's a disadvantage that in the church that we don't take advantage of more, because in the entrepreneurial, in the corporate space, networking is always happening.
Absolutely.
And I think that more ministries, and even have even with the conferences that are taking place that we see more of now, I think that's a good thing. And I think that even outside of conferences, if there are opportunities to connect with just a visit to a church on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, sometimes you can do that and you can have coffee with the pastor, whomever, and you learn things. What people don't understand, doing that kind of networking visits or even having those sit down conversations over coffee, it allows you to learn something as small as, what platform are you using for your finances? How are you bringing them all together? Are you using, Fellowship One to make sure that the Cash App and the Givelify and everybody are talking to one another? Yeah. Are they syncing? What are you using for this? What are you using for that? How are the QR code thing going, where you can make everything come to one platform so people can get the visitor form, they can get the prayer request, they can get the giving, they can get the worship guide, they get the pastor bio, they can go to your social media. All that you can get by going somewhere, because you go there and say, oh, they're using a QR code. Let me talk. And I did that. That was one thing I did. I preached at a white church. And when I went there and saw what they were doing, I said, oh, I like this. And so what I did, I talked with the executive pastor there. And she and I had a conversation, and she told me exactly where to go, what I needed to do. I brought it back to my church, and we are using it now.
Wow. Yeah, and that's amazing. Those connections and helping to bridge that which others are doing to spread it around, because we're all in the ministry for a singular purpose.
Sure.
So why not take those opportunities to share and to use those in our ministries? And you mentioned about being an executive pastor, which is a very critical role. Yeah. So tell us about what that looks like from your day-to-day, from your operational perspective, providing that service to your ministry.
It is really a role that's almost like a chief of staff. So it's an overall arching role over all ministries and all things in the church. Basically what you're doing is being the Robin to the Batman, so to speak. You're supporting what the pastor had placed as the vision and the mission of the church and his plan of action that he's put forth in terms of his action plans, what he wants to get done. And you're helping that flow by making sure everybody is operating in their respective roles, and you're making sure they're operating in excellence. So there's a lot of things of order to do. So you're always constantly, maybe fixing issues, because you're the soundboard before it gets to the pastor. So you deal with a lot of church conflict, that part. But you also are looking at nuances, how that we can make the church better while still doing the things that we do well and do great. And then you may have to have meetings. There may be meetings with the music staff. There may be meetings that you may have to have with various different groups, the leaders of the groups, like directors or chairs or whatever it is you call in your church. And then you're sitting down saying, hey, how can we be better? How can we do this better? We noticed that we didn't do this. We missed the mark on this. And then it's also sitting in. You're preaching when you need to preach for him. You're doing funerals when you need to do for him or her. Let me say that. You're also visiting sick when you need to visit the sick. You're communing people when you need to do that. It's all things.
Yeah.
So you kind of, wherever you need to pitch hit is where you need to pitch hit. I have sat in meetings with our, we call them stewards, what is our finance team, to go over finances. If we missed the mark, we talked about how we can make that better. We talked about bringing projects to help us, bring in supplemental income. So it's all of those things that you do, as well as just basically, I would say manning the house is the best way I can describe it, and making sure the pastor has a designated time to do the pastoral things that the pastor needs to do. It's a role that I think that people don't take very seriously because they don't know what all comes with it, but it's a heavy role, and it's a role that many women are not in.
And I think that the administrative capacities of a church and how well it functions plays a major role in how that ministry is able to flourish.
Sure.
And to your point about it not being, as far as the administrative side, not being as highly recognized or glorified.
Yeah.
The church is on its function should always outweigh its facade.
Absolutely.
What the church looks like outwardly is only as good as how it functions and how it operates every day. And so what are some strategies from a church administration standpoint for those who may be in those roles that you have employed in order to keep things running smoothly?
I think one of the things that I have, I'm big on excellence. And I'm big on people being within their scope of their gifts. I think a lot of times what happens, we have persons in roles and that they're not necessarily talented or gifted to being those roles. And a lot of time in church, we just need to fill it because we need to kind of get things going. But I think it's important that we make sure people are operating within their gifts and that we are nurturing their leadership capabilities.
Within those gifts. Yeah.
So I think we have to make sure that we're training people properly. We have to encourage and empower them. We have to make sure that we are there to help guide them when they get to a place where they may, bump into a wall and need help with trying to figure out something. And I think we also need to have succession plans because persons need to be able to shadow other persons. No one should be in a role forever. And so we need to encourage our leaders to understand there will be other leaders that we are creating and we're making and nurturing. Those are some of the things that I think are great strategies. The other thing I think we have to make sure that everybody understands the vision and everybody's on board with that vision and that we are operating on one accord. I think if you're moving a church forward and everybody's is moving towards that, we won't always agree. There will be conflict even in that, but you still will be productive in that. You can still keep people moving the needle forward, and you just have to do that. And I think you constantly have to do this cycle of training, and you have to have patience. You have to have patience. You cannot.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
It wasn't built in a day, and you have to know how to people manage. Sure. It's very important to know how to people manage, and people manage well. Because we want to make sure that we're not being egotistical. We're not being, it's my way or the highway. We want to make sure that we're being loving even in that, as we are still being strong leaders to ensure that people understand there is a leadership, quality here that I'm guiding you and I'm helping you. But
you're
I'm
also discipling them along the way.
And you're discipling them along the way. And you have to deal with a lot of personalities. I tell you that's the thing that as an executive pastor role, and the same with senior pastor, but when you're like the sounding board before it gets to the pastor, there's a lot of different personalities, and those personalities are sometimes working together in these ministries, and you always have to kind of help them deal with it. The one word I use all the time with all of my leaders, and I call them leaders, everybody from small to seasoned, they're all called leaders. I always say we are operating excellent, but we also operate in grace.
Wow.
Everybody gets grace.
And that's important because I think that helps to build capacity for
Absolutely.
stronger leadership
And trust.
and trust.
And
It
trust.
does.
And compassion.
And compassion. And so, and then where I fall short, you're able to strengthen me where I may be weak.
And you're not judgmental.
And you're not judgmental.
Yeah. So it kind of pulls down that complaining kind of thing that you get. Well, she's not doing this, or he's not doing this. And when they come to me with that, the first thing I say, well, let's see how we can operate in grace. How can we look at it from the perspective of grace? Could it be that this person just may have had a very bad day that we don't know anything about? Could it be that this person may be in the role and we have not fully developed them? So I always use the pie kind of example, and I say we need to make sure there's equal cuts of the pie, which means they're equal grace, which means they're also equal fault. And so we have to remember we all have fault and we all need grace.
All need grace.
So how can we make each other better?
And as Dr. King says, I can't be what I ought to be if you aren't what you are.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
we have to work together, and it can't be just me and you in isolation.
Yeah.
We have to work together. And I think that isolation and working in silos has been a downfall or a detriment
Right.
in many of our church experiences, where the collective capacity, when it's fully implemented, can allow us to shine and
Absolutely.
do great things.
We have to be careful of the hierarchy mentality.
Yeah.
We have to be very careful of putting that out as, I'm here and you're there. I think people respect roles, and we want them to respect roles, and roles are important. But I also want people to understand that I don't live on the pedestal. I live within the community.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I, although I may be the person, quote unquote, in charge of things, I'm still one of you. I came to Christ too. I came through my stuff too.
Just as I was.
Just as it was. And just remember, good leaders make great leaders.
That's right.
Yeah. And great leaders can make even greater leaders.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. So one thing about serving in an administrative role and as an executive pastor, I know that you work a lot with the infrastructure of the church, which incorporates, as you mentioned, some things about technology.
Yeah.
And that's critical in our church today.
Yeah.
So I know you talked about the QR code
Yeah.
and the ways of giving and all of that. What are some things that you've done or are doing at St. Paul as it relates to helping to integrate in a healthy way a sense of use of technology?
Well, the one thing I'm doing, I would say that's probably the greatest thing, is bringing in someone younger than me. To get in, we have a beautiful intern, young lady from Clark, who's come in, and she's going to take over the social media. Wow. So where I lack in doing reels and things of that nature, she is perfect at it. And so where she doesn't do Facebook as much as us who are older, that's the part that she and I worked on with that. So I think that's one thing, bringing in people who are innovative, people who are younger, not necessarily because, younger people know more, but they are engaged more. So I think that's one thing that, that we've done. The other thing is looking at the platforms that we're using. Are they relevant for us now?
Wow.
Do we need to go and look at other platforms? Do we need to just have some training, someone come in and talk to us about different platforms that will work better for our giving, better for, looking at different ways to do websites, what works. So I think the whole technology piece, and then, looking at our sound and our AV, our media ministry, how can we incorporate that to do more things with technology? What do we need to do? Just looking at various ways and talking to different people and visiting places to see what they're doing, talking to people. I do a lot of coffee time, coffee and chat. Hey, can we, meet for coffee? And I don't drink coffee. What about tea? Do you like to eat? I like to eat. So whatever it is, just to kind of pick people's brain so I can kind of stay on top of technology and stay on top of, the new nuances of things. So I'm just bringing different ideas to the church, to my church, that will work for my setting. And seeing what we can
important.
do. Yeah. Yeah.
What works best for your ministry.
Yeah. Finance wise, all of that, resource wise, you just got to look at all those things before you bring in and incorporate things. But I think the other thing is too, that we need to bring into our church, talk about AI. We kind of want to get away from the chat GPT and AI, but I think it's very relevant now. And so I think bringing persons in just to show us how we can use that better.
It was said by several senior saints at one time about
Yeah.
technology and using phones in the worship space, that,
Yeah.
you know, technology is the
Right.
devil.
Right.
You know, don't bring that into the church.
Now we holding up for the QR code, right?
Hey, put that slide back up there.
Right. There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
So, or we're using our phones to pull up the Bible,
Yeah.
or texting
Yeah.
to give, or taking selfies,
Yeah.
and how technology has helped to make things much more convenient.
Yeah.
And I think that, to what you said, looking at the different platforms
Yeah.
yields the need to look at data
Absolutely.
and evaluating how the tools are working for you.
Right.
You know, every tool,
Reporting out so you can see
Yeah.
it. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
every tool is not created equal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Another thing that I am bringing to my church is doing when we have visitors, where usually the old school thing is to send out a letter or maybe send out an email. I would like to send out a short video, just speaking to them and saying, thank you for coming. You know, we're glad that you came to share with us today. We hope that you come back again, blah, blah, blah. A video message sometimes can be, you know, different in this day and age. And so you're reaching not on another demographics, age-wise, but you also engaging those who are seasoned, because they're like, oh, that's Reverend so-and-so.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's important.
And you're connecting with people who, you know, the old school way of doing it. I know you're too young, but you
you're
know, they would have you to stand up in church
Absolutely.
and
Give your name.
give your name.
Where you from?
Who's your pastor?
Right. And people are introverts. They're not comfortable.
So
Yeah.
with technology, you're able to connect with the people, because there's so many people who, when it's time for the visitors to stand,
Yeah.
who aren't going to stand
Absolutely.
and definitely not talk.
Right. And they're not comfortable doing that.
Right.
Yeah. And so they don't do it. But yeah, so that's what we have a link on the platform we have, so they can go in and do a very short form that would come to us. And then that would include their email address. And that way we can send that short snippet of a video that can be linked to like a Google Drive. You don't have to do anything fancy. It can go right there and they can get it, and, you know, it's shareable. And so just those small things that I think they're very helpful, and just kind of engaging not only the people in the church, but also engaging the community.
Yeah, and the people online who are watching
People online
the
watching.
worship service.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's critical for them to stay connected, for them to feel engaged.
Absolutely.
And I always like to approach and encourage, even like what you're doing with technology, even before you get to the big stuff.
Yeah.
Start with the small things.
Yeah. Virtual new members classes. People are busy.
Yeah,
They don't have time to come to the church.
they don't. And,
Yeah.
and doing small groups.
Small groups.
Yeah.
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 Bible studies can be virtual. All these things that COVID did bless us
Yes.
and gift us with some great things. We just have to capitalize on it. Coming back in church is wonderful. I think it's great. But we do have to acknowledge now that we have a virtual church community. And we have to acknowledge that they are there. And we have to say it's okay that they're not in the building.
And we have to cater our worship service to both audiences.
To both audiences.
So it's not just where they're just looking and watching, but they're engaging.
Right. Yeah.
And making them feel a part of it. And like what you're doing with forms, I think that's great.
It's great. You can collect the data. You can have it in real time. You can, run reporting on, how many visitors you're getting a week. For AMEs, we report out on a lot of things. So it's a very quick way that we can do it without doing the old school way of going through sheets of form because the person walked up and signed your name down on something. I think it's more accurate.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And that's also a great way to get volunteers.
Absolutely.
There was the day when before we got into the fancy announcements on the screen.
Right, yeah.
Where we had the announcing clerk.
Absolutely.
And the announcing clerk would get up and say, well, we need people to sign up to do this or to bring that.
Absolutely.
Now we have forms where people can go online, fill it out. So that way, if in the old school church, when you had the church picnic, people would just bring stuff and you would have too much macaroni and cheese or the wrong person bringing the potato salad.
Hallelujah, somebody. And where you pushing it to the side, say, y'all know this is so-and-so, but right? We're not eating our potato salad.
But now you can manage and say, oh, okay.
You can manage all things.
All
Yeah.
things.
I did a candle making class for Women's Month, and that's where I first really introduced the QR code to the seniors who did not do QR code. It was very challenging. I don't want to do that. And I was like, well, let's do it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they did it, they was like, oh, I know how to do it. You found that they were actually, like that. Some never did it.
Sure.
And I had manual tickets for them. because they wanted to give a check, cash. You're going to have that,
yeah,
and it's okay. We
okay.
celebrate them too because
Yes.
they're involved and engaged.
Because it's still deposits.
Yeah, it's still deposit, but it's still they're still doing something new.
Yes.
Because candle making was new for them. They had never done that, and I wanted to do an event that I can incorporate all ages. Yeah,
And that makes a difference because you want there to be a sense of intergenerational feel.
Absolutely.
In our ministries.
Yeah, we want to respect all ages and let people know that they're value and they're important to the ministry, and we need all of them.
And I think that's the definition, the true definition of 21st century ministry.
Yeah.
21st century ministry, it is heavily based in technology, heavily based in being innovative, but is keeping everyone together, whether you're 2 or 102. Engagement.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a big part of ministry now. Yeah. This culture wants to be engaged. And then you also have the seasoned saints who also desire to still be made a part. So you have to make your engagement umbrella wide.
So what are some things in terms of engagement? I know you mentioned about the candle making class. What are some other things that your church or you're doing to help to strengthen and to continue to sustain engagement from a 21st century perspective, ministry perspective?
I listen to what people desire and what people want. We may not be able to do everything, but we may be able to do some things. And so the seniors wanted to do something called Young at Heart, where they would gather and have their own little kind of Bible study, and they would do their own thing. They gather, they go out, they take outings. I go sometime and say, you know what, I need to go to one of their outings. I need to go with them. I need to visit with them. I need to do something with a younger heart. The same thing, the young adults are saying, we want this, we want that. You know, let's sit down and talk about that. Help me flesh that out. Podcasting, one of the things that came up.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. And so I said, you know what? We can talk about that. And then what I don't know about that, you bring in someone to help with that. You see what I mean? So I think that's another way of engaging. And then you do the candle making or the big thing that will bring in all ages. But I think you got to listen to see what people want. I cannot make up all the things or events or bring in the ministries that I think would fit for everyone. I need to listen to see what everyone needs. And then try to put a plan of action together of how we can get there and what we can do. And
so that's important to connect both tradition and innovation.
Absolutely. And it's not an easy piece, but it's easy when you have people around who understands how to do it. When you're not trying to be all for everybody and do all, when you're saying, hey, I'm limited. Let me go get the young lady from Clark. Hey, I'm limited. Let me go over and ask someone at Young at Heart. You know, it's bringing those persons together and say, you know what, how can we do this and make it better and everybody can be a part? And if they don't want to come to something because they feel like, well, no, I think that's for the younger crowd, that's totally okay. It's totally okay. But we still have to be able to do those things so that we can gauge it. Because tradition is going to always be there. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We still need parts of that. Yeah.
And you want to celebrate it.
Absolutely.
You want to embrace it. And you want to, one thing that I find that's helpful is how you take whatever is new and connect it with an element, because nothing's really new. It's just a different way of doing it.
Absolutely.
And making them feel a part of it based on how it connects to how they learned it or how they embraced it in their youth or at a certain time.
Their context of how they come to this Christian journey and how they do church. And that has to be respected. And the other thing about that is, you know, what we forget about tradition is that tradition is not bad. Some things in tradition at churches people do well. One church that I went to when my first pastor transitioned over to this church was a very stocking type church, AME Church, and it was they were just very regimented. Yeah. And so what we knew we couldn't bring in all these, innovative things. You just could, we knew the lay of the land, and that's something you just couldn't come in readily to do. But what we did, we concentrated on what they did well. And we elevated that. We made that big. And that worked. And when we did that, it opened the door for them to hear about other things that we may want to incorporate. And so we were able to incorporate something that people think is simple because other churches have it, but like a dance ministry. We incorporated one for the seniors and for the young adults.
You had the seniors out there dancing.
We had the seniors out there dancing, and I danced with them. And I don't dance, but I did it because I wanted them to see what it can do and how it can be a part of worship. And so we brought in all those things, and so we were able to do more and more and more. But at the same time, we were doing what they did well, so we did both. And that really moved the needle for that church. It moved the worship, it moved the ministry, and it allowed us to be able to get that church to a level that it had never been before.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think that if we embrace more of that, finding what ministries do well and finding what our leaders understand and embrace well.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be something as simple as connecting with the mother who makes a sweet potato pie well.
Absolutely.
And using that as a way to bridge and to open up the conversation about that tradition and even making a connection to 21st century ministry.
Yeah. Or letting her tell the story. How did you learn to make sweet potato pie? Well, my grandmother and my great grandmother. And then hearing the story of that and then taking it and say to maybe the younger generation to say, do you see how important it is to pass down things that you've learned? Do you see how it can grow and get better over time? Not just a sweet potato pie, but it could be anything. It could be a business. Mm-hmm. See, then you switch over to them because a lot of young people are entrepreneurs, or
influencers.
Mm-hmm. And so you can deal with that in that way. So something as small as a sweet potato pie, that story can also transition to a story of an influencer. Mm-hmm. To say, what can you pass down from, because the influencer is also entrepreneur.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a process.
It's a process.
And
it's steps.
Over time.
And you learn from someone. Someone teaches you. And they tell you how they got there. How did I get to being an influencer? Well, I saw that she was telling the story. And when she started doing that, then it worked. So people started following her. And then I started doing it. And then when I started doing this, or when I got into this, then it just caught on. And now here I am. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I mean? It all evolves from somebody's story and journey. And that's important. And that transition ages and demographics.
Indeed.
It does.
And that also helps with ensuring that our churches stay healthy.
Absolutely.
And it also helps to support church growth.
Yes.
And I think in the 21st century ministry model, church growth looks differently.
It does.
And we have to embrace how it's evolving.
Yeah.
So within your ministry and the ministry that you supported, how has church growth or your approach to church growth, in addition to like how you were able to find things that ministries do well to help them, then how did that transition, or what are some things that help to transcend into the support into helping the church to grow?
I think discipleship is still the way. Mm-hmm. It's just the way we do it.
Yeah.
I think when we say the come as you are, we have to realize that looks different now. And that means people come with various, backgrounds and various perspectives, various gifts, various needs. We just talked about influencers. Now we have influencers in our churches. Mm-hmm. How do we minister to them? Do you see what I mean? So I think we have to still disciple, but we may have to disciple differently. Mm-hmm. And so that means you need to create that evangelism team that doesn't look one way. Mm. That your evangelism team need to mirror your community. Wow. It's the same way with you dealing with colleges and schools. Your faculty should mirror the demographics of your students. You can't have an all-white faculty when now your population of students are now Mexican, African American, etc. So or Hispanic, African American, etc. So now you need to make sure that your faculty needs to represent it. Or women. You got more women, but let's look at seminary. There are more women now in seminary than there are men, and they're more graduating. So now you have to have more women on the faculty, because you gotta mirror that. So it's the same way with church. So your evangelism team, when people go out, or when people are discipling in whichever way they're discipling, they need to make sure that they mirror the community, and not just the community on the outside of the church, but the community inside the church as well.
Wow. Yeah. That's important.
It is.
Because I think that people build better relationships with people who look like them.
Yeah.
Representation is important.
Very much so.
And that helps to allows for the opportunity for people to feel less judged or intimidated by connecting
Or
with others.
excluded.
Or excluded.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
It does.
Yeah. So,
and everybody on the team can't be from the suburbs.
No.
You know.
And I think in addition to that, that even plays a role in digital discipleship too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because when people who are watching online
right,
can see people who look like them, who relate to their story, who connect with their demographic.
Right.
I like this ministry because I can identify with this ministry, and I can identify with the Christ in the people in this ministry.
That's right.
Yeah.
I found my home.
Found your home. Wow.
Yeah.
So, and in digital discipleship, I know that you all have done quite a bit with connecting with people online. I know, you'll have a great online ministry, and you're continuing to do things to help grow in technology as well.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So as we kind of transition to a close, and I know this podcast is about being a first-class church or being a first-class ministry. And I ask this all the time with some of the other guests that have been on the podcast about when you think about first-class church, what does that look like? Or what do you envision? What do you see? And what is something that you live by, or a mantra, as far as I know you are big about church excellence? What would you, in a statement, say that first-class church means to you?
I would say first-class church first is imperfect. It is a church that is constantly evolving, constantly working to be better. It is that church that is authentic to itself. It is a listening church that hears the needs of the people inside and outside. To be a first-class church, you have to be like Christ. And you have to, although we consider Christ as perfect, but Christ sat among imperfect people. And I think in order to do that, we are constantly going to be in that whole transition of trying to be our best selves. And we should never feel like we have arrived, because once we feel like we have arrived, we're into an ego. And I don't think God works well there.
No.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Dr. Libby, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
If you want to hear some good preaching, Dr. Libby is a great preacher. Now that I know that if you need a cake, Dr. Libby is a baker. You do sweet potato pie?
I do all pies.
All
yes,
pies?
of course.
German chocolate cake?
Oh, come on. Yes.
Oh, I can see a German chocolate cake just has no chance.
No chance.
Wow.
Yeah, German chocolate cake. I do it all. I started by saying I make the cakes that your grandmother used to make.
Okay, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a hankering for a pound cake, so
That's
I may
right.
call you.
I mean, I do other things like the wedding cakes and things like that as well. I work alongside a pastry chef, so we work together to make sure we meet the needs of mostly our event place, but also, of course, other persons, so they can go online at Sugar Plum Sweets.
Yeah, hey, let them know.
.com.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's sugar, SUGAH, plum. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, so
because our daddy called us sugar.
Sugar.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's awesome. So, hey, best of success to you.
Thank you.
In ministry and in business, and continue the great work that you're doing. And the best is yet to come.
I believe it for both of us.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yes.
My pleasure. And if you are not subscribed to the First Class Church podcast, again, subscribe to this podcast. We look forward to supporting your ministry and the work that you're doing through the guests who are part of our show. And so, again, if you're not subscribed, please do so today for this episode and for many more to come. God bless you. This is Dr. Timothy Farmer, your techno-evangelist. Faith cometh by hearing, and clear, powerful sound is essential to impactful worship. Check out my new book, Beyond the Soundboard, a practical guide to quality church audio for pastors, leaders, and media teams. Whether you're a pastor seeking better sound for sermons, optimizing your sound system, equipping volunteers, or enhancing virtual worship, this book provides the essential tools and insights you need. Order Beyond the Soundboard today on Amazon or at farmertechgroup.com.